We should talk about that.
It's giving. We're close.
We should go through
and do our names.
I'm Abby Bennett.
I'm Abby Bach.
I'm Amelia Monahan.
I'm Chanel Shirey.
And Stephanie Kosonen.
And this is Post 4.
We're Group 4, right?
Group 4.
Group 4, Post 4.
Group 4, Post 4.
4.
So do you guys want to talk about TCKs first?
Yes.
Yeah, we're talking about that.
That was the first thing I watched. And we were just discussing before we started the video how they would ask these TCKs, where are you from? And it's kind of difficult to describe. And Abby Bennett was saying she liked if they worded it, where is home?
Well, I think they did word it I like the fact that they did word it.
Oh,
where is home?
Instead of where you from.
Because that adds, I guess, more meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think, like, home, to me at least, is, like, somewhere very special. So to ask these TKC kids, they, like, may not, or I think some of them didn't identify, like, specifically with a place. They're like, well, I don't know how to describe that. I'm in France and America for half the time, so where is my home? And I never thought about that someone might not have, like, a place where they're like, yes, this is definitely home.
Yeah, a lot of them, or at least one of them actually said it gets really repetitive to explain it every time. Like, I grew up here, but I was born somewhere else, and I have spent the past 20 years in another place, so, like, it just gets repetitive. So he said that he just says, oh, I'm just from California, just to make it easy, which kind of takes away from, the truth of who he is and where he's from. So I guess it just depends on the context and if you're really going to be getting into a deep relationship with this person or if it's just somebody on the subway,
Yeah,
right.
Well, I've heard people say that too, even about like their ethnicity, like if they have more than one or if they have one that's complicated, like people that don't understand it, they just say one thing and then that's really not encompassing who they are, but they're like, it's fine. And so eventually they end up identifying themselves that way.
Because they don't want all the extra questions. Oh, well, you don't look Asian.
Yeah.
Oh, but you speak Japanese so well. Or, it's like, okay.
That, brings up, I forgot, I think it was it's definitely, like, the Japanese student. I don't remember what his name was in the video, but there was a quote that, like, that he had said that someone had said to him that they were saying, like, oh, you look just like us, but, like, your name doesn't fit, like, the Japanese, like, way. Because I think he had, like, maybe his name was Ricky or something. And then, but he's just like, well, I speak English better than I do Japanese, but because he appears to be different or like the same as them on the outside doesn't mean like that's how they identify on the inside. And I thought that was really interesting, even reading the articles too, that like I could identify myself totally different than how I appear to others.
I understand that. I feel like on a way smaller scale because I moved from like California to Pennsylvania to Washington like at a young age, so like totally small because obviously it's an American culture, but it definitely, like we've talked about, like subcultures in America and like that's definitely different from California to Pennsylvania to Washington, and it is really different. So like I totally understand what they're saying about that and like being like it's really difficult to like go through it, and like when people ask where are you from, like you don't know if they even care to.
Right.
Like it's also very much like, do I give them the energy that they, or like what energy level are they asking me at? Like what is the right form and level to do, because you have so many answers. Like I'm like, I asked my boyfriend, I'm like, where do you say I'm from when people ask you? And it's interesting because somebody else would be like, oh, they're from Japan, they're from whatever, because they identify you as something else. So I asked my boyfriend, he's like, I say you're from California, and I'm like, that's so weird. If I had to pick one place, I wouldn't say that. I would say I'm from Pennsylvania. But I would never actually just pick one place because they are all so important to me that it's so difficult to just pick one place.
It's really interesting.
And I think people are just like curious for the wrong reasons too, because like this is even when I was younger, and like I kind of hate that like I was like this, but just growing up in a small town, like everyone was basically the same, sort of like I wasn't exposed to a lot. But I remember if I was to see someone walking down the street, like when I was like in middle school, I'd be like, oh, like is that a man or a woman? Like when it doesn't even matter to me, like and, like it really doesn't, like, and go ahead and be whatever you want. But I think people are just like curious, just for like, not that they would change the world once they figure out like who you are or where you're from, but like people just want to know for some weird reason.
I think we have the tendency to like pinpoint what's different about other people, so we know you're different. That's how I see it. Like, like growing up, like comments when like you would hear that when you're young, and like I grew up in a small town too, so you aren't exposed, you don't know, you don't have those important conversations, but you see someone who's wearing traditionally like different gender's clothes, and you're like, why? Like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Like, this is why you're different.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, and also in talking about where people are from, sometimes they aren't really curious. Sometimes it's like making small talk, like when you're at the grocery store and the checker says, "How are you?" They really don't care, but it's just something that you say, like, "Oh, where are you from? What do you do?" But sometimes that can be like opening up a can of worms, you know.
Have you guys seen the video? I don't remember what it's called, but it's like two people are running and one of them's white and one of them is
the Korean.
Yeah, and so the guy's like, "Oh, where are you from?" And she's like, "California." And he's like, "No, but where are you from?" Like, your English sounds really, microaggressions. And that's really, it's kind of like your intent. Like, if you are asking, like, "Oh, where are you from?" Like, that's one thing, but asking, like, what is your ethnicity is really what people are asking a lot of the time behind that.
And that's the main thing there is intent. Was that Ricky Koo guy? Was he the one, like the one you're talking about, I think is Ricky Koo. The guy who was saying that being a TCK is like a lifelong endeavor and it's a lifestyle. And he said, I'm going to be a TCA. I'm going to be a TC adult.
Yes.
You know, he said he kind of sees it as values to emulate and it's a positive thing. And I think a lot of them did recognize that too. There was a female talking about it who said that they should recognize these characteristics of themselves as skills, like recognize them as such, and then also use them to bridge these gaps. So they kind of have this responsibility that comes along with this unique lifestyle that they have.
I remember the woman that was saying that, and she was like, I feel like TCKs have that because of the situations that they were in, but it's something that it's a skill that every person can gain throughout their life, and it's like a TCK's job to like guide the way that those skills are used in order to bridge the gaps. And I feel like that's really important, is because like it's something that like TCKs can teach other people, and other people, if they're more aware of TCKs cultures and stuff like that and other things that they have to deal with, they're going to be more likely to just adapt to, and those are going to be the same skills that they have understanding other people. I feel like that's really important.
And I think it's just hard, not even like if you are one race and you live in America, like, you know, for like Ricky, like he's Japanese, but like he lives like he's also like American because like that's what his culture is like. He knows more about that. But also there was I think it was a girl who had like a Korean mom and then an Irish dad in the video, and that's really hard because it's just conflicting cultures, and like plus you're in America now, so you have like this standard to live by too. And even my roommate, she's half Japanese and half African American, and then she comes into this world too. Like there's just like different things that are conflicting all the time that like as a teacher or something I wouldn't really know how to go about that.
That young woman you just mentioned from the video, she even said she has to act different amongst her Asian family and her Irish family.
And that's hard. You want to be like consistent in who you are, especially when you starting to go through puberty and like getting into high school and stuff. Like you're starting to kind of sort of figure yourself out, like and like that's really challenging.
The one positive I see about that is that she is able to act one way with one side of the family and the other way, so she can fully envelop herself in each of those cultures. And I think that is, I think, one cool thing about like being able having different identities.
You kind of like pick.
Yeah, that's the double consciousness thing was that you that wrote about that, or Amelia?
Double consciousness. I did.
That's like what that is like being able to like code switch, right?
Yeah,
and
basically
have
being
more than one.
Code switch is a great way to put that. It really is super code switching, like going from one space to another and being able to like not lose yourself too. Like that's a really big skill that you have to like focus on. Is not like put yourself down and like what's the word? When you're being oppressed. Don't like oppress yourself in one culture. Like be able to use the knowledge you know about that culture to share those things. Like you know that like in a Japanese culture you are not as like open and pointy and yelly to like elders and stuff like that as you are in an Irish family. Trust me, you're very yelling and stuff in an Irish family. And so I feel like being able to learn how to address people will give you that skill, you know what I mean, in other contexts and stuff like that. Like the specifics of the culture give you skills in other cultures, even though they don't seem like they really relate to each other.
Yeah, that was one of my questions that I wrote down, was how can double consciousness and being able to switch between those two cultures, how can that be positive and how can it be negative? Because I feel like there are a lot of different ways that it could go really well for someone or like be really difficult for somebody.
I think just having that ability to code switch would carry over into other aspects of life. not just cultures that have to do with your ethnicity, but different like work cultures and social cultures. When I was first entering the professional world, I've always been kind of young for my age, and so I was still like skateboarding and partying and like hanging out with my friends and being that Stephanie, and then I would put on like professional Steph hat, and I kind of felt conflicted, like who am I, because I didn't want to like grow up, I guess, so quick. So if I had had those code switching skills, I think I would have been more comfortable during that era of my life, just being able to be like, okay, I'm still myself, you know, I'm just me as a teacher, me as like my social me.
You in different roles. Yeah. It's hard.
As teachers, or future educators, how do you guys think you could help teach kids or help encourage them to code switch when they want to? I think there's a different word than code switch for this situation. Maybe not.
I think we know what we're talking about though. So.
Or would that kind of not like be on us? What would you guys?
I think it's kind of hard because even me, I try to be like consistent with who I am, like from people to people too, but also like my hometown friends, like they know me in a different way than like you guys know me, or my family knows me a different way than like my friends know, like, so I think it's really hard because even though like we are true to ourselves at some points, but like we do have different relationships with people, and just like putting on different hats, like you can't be drunk showing up to work. I mean, go for it, but you know what I mean, like that sort of thing, but you can on like a Saturday night or something. So I don't know, I think just with kids, it's just like giving them confidence to like be who they are, sort of thing. I think that'll go a long way, but you can't really tell them how they're supposed to be because we don't know how they're supposed to be. Only they kind of know.
Well, I actually feel like teachers teach code switching all the time, because you talk about your inside voice during class, and go ahead and go outside and play at recess and use your outside voice, and that's totally not necessarily versus different cultures code switching, but we learn how to do that from a very young age. Like at home we act a certain way, and at school we act a certain way, and with our friends we act a certain way, and there's appropriate behaviors for all of those times, and it's not necessarily that you're like not yourself when you're in school, but some kids definitely feel like that when they're sitting in a classroom they're not being themselves.
That might be a good way to explain to them how hey, it's okay to have these different aspects of yourself, and it's okay if you act differently at home or with different cultures. It's just like how you have to behave in the group plan at school and be quiet in class, but then you can like just relate it to the differences between inside and outside voice. You can be like, it's still you. Yeah. You're
still yourself. You just
I like that.
I feel like especially in younger ages too, it's really important, and I think that it exists two different like levels within the teacher in a classroom. I feel like I notice it in my 6th grade classroom a lot, that the teacher has two different like relationships with each student. There's the teacher relationship where they're like, okay, everybody, this is the instruction that I'm giving you, you're all supposed to do it. And then there's the part where she goes, hey, Abby, is that really a good idea? Because you're keeping them in check with their social things and stuff like that, because it's not always about school.
Yeah,
it's
you're learning
those
things too.
Oh, is writing a 2 instead of a 4 a good idea? You're commenting on their personality too, which is another level of like relationship, I feel like, in the classroom. And usually at a certain age, especially if they don't have that support at home, that's another amazing thing that like can, I don't know, like one person that has 2 roles is really important, because it can show the person or the kids that they can have 2 different roles in life also. They can have their home life, they can have their school life, if they're getting 2 different roles from a person, which is good.
I guess just be like that example, or like that model.
Yeah. And it's cool when teachers bring in things and they talk about their home lives too, like they show a picture of their family or something, because the kids are able to see, like, they're not just a teacher, they go through things like I go through them, so.
Or like, oh, they go grocery shopping too. Like when I would see my teachers at the grocery store, I'd be like, what?
It's weird, yeah.
That sharing part of yourself in order to solicit the other to do the same reminds me of when we were in our equity and education class, and we had that panel with Shar and Selmo.
Yeah.
And she was talking about intent, again, how if you share, you know, oh, I'm from, like, my ethnicity is, like, for me, I'm Finnish. I'm curious to know about you, what's your ethnicity? Because then it's not just you asking them to be nosy. It's you actually want to share with them too, and it makes them feel better, at least for her.
Yeah, and I think coming from, like, if you're white asking that, it almost makes it seem like you don't have an ethnicity.
Right.
Like, I'm asking you because you have one, and that's different for me, but we all do have them, you know what I mean? So I think when you ask that question and don't share about yourself, it's really othering.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. And that kind of reminds me of, like, some of the articles too, just about, like, you will be Latino, but, like, you're also, like, from different parts of Spain too that make up you, or like Mexico. Just like with us, like, we're white, but like we have Irish, we have Dutch, we have German all in us too. But like we just kind of can be clumped into this big group based on our skin color.
I feel like I grew up with some kids that would say, they would argue with me, and they would be like, no, I'm American, and I'd be like, well, I'm Irish and German and Italian, and like what are you? And I'm American. But where is your ancestry from? And people would like genuinely argue because, and I feel like that's some mindset of like people now. It's like, does it matter? Like, and like, if you're in America, do you need to eliminate all of your ethnicities and stuff like that? Is that the importance? Because if you like, just like the video you were saying, if somebody went up to that Korean person and asked the intent, where are you from? But they said first, I'm from America. Where are you from? They would like, it's different than being like, I'm from Finland. Where are you from? You know what I mean? Because no one's really from America.
Yeah.
So saying that like you don't belong in them, like that's not.
It's to like ignore history that everybody travels over here. So like people that say that, I feel like want to take ownership of this and have a reason to exclude other people. So it's intent to like, why are you saying you're from America?
Not really from. No one's from America. Like just because my ancestors were here for 20 more years than you're like. Okay.
So that kind of reminds me of the very first part of this Growing Up in the Shadows article talks about how public perception looks at, Hispanic people, Latino, as illegal immigrants, but it says here that only 1/4 of all immigrants in the United States are unauthorized. So that's not all of them. It's like a significant, just a minority. And I think what we're talking about now really can be applied to the whole documentation issue, because they need to express their culture too, but they're living in the shadows, and it's not they're afraid to do that, you know what I mean?
Well, I think so yeah, my part was reading the different types of the documentation status and the differences between them. Like they have, of course, like very similar experiences, but also very different, and that really surprised me. A majority are citizens, but then a majority of those are children, and a lot of them don't have unauthorized parents,
right?
Which adds a whole new layer, because their parents have to be in the shadow. So even though these students don't have to be, they are in the shadows.
And that has a lot of implications, because if you're like, I knew a kid who he didn't have documentation because he moved to the US when he was like 2 years old. So he grew up here and almost forgets sometimes that he doesn't have, like, he never really had to deal with it until he applied for college, and then was like, wow, I never thought about this until now, because all his brothers are citizens, and his parents have been able to function fine even though they don't have documentation. But once he started trying to go to college, it really didn't work out very well. But things like his mom didn't want to interact with his friends ever, because she was like afraid of certain things. And then they are always asking for chaperones on trips and for parent involvement, and so they like kind of pressure that sometimes. Like I remember for dances and stuff, like they're like, we really need chaperones, like are you asking your parents? And it's like, we have to think about that some parents are terrified to ever come into a system like that,
or even conferences too. You're like, just like
they think that they're gonna ask them to show something, or that they'll just like assume things, and people do assume things, so it's a fair fear.
How do you address their fear without assuming things or looking like you're assuming things, you know? Like, I almost want to just tell all the parents of the ELL students that are Latino, like, if anybody's unauthorized, just let them know, like, I'm not checking up on that. I just want to talk to them about your education.
Yeah, it's like at that point, it's like none of your business too.
Right.
Yeah,
you know?
and that's another assumption about
exactly.
like Latino parents, that they
exactly.
don't care because they don't show up to things, or they don't like answer calls or don't interact with the teacher, and that's not. I mean, they care a lot, and I think this article talked a lot about that. Which is really sad that they feel like they can't interact because of the way we've set things up.
And also the way that society is set up because of the things that they're having to take over, like the times of jobs and the times that they're working, they might not be the right time and stuff like that because they have to work in certain hours and stuff like that.
Like half-day conferences are the dumbest. It's such a dumb idea.
Or the buses aren't working and they have to find a way. Like, how's that kid supposed to get home if their parents are working and the bus system's not working and they, like, can't communicate? They don't have friends in the classroom because, like, the parents can't call the other parent and be like, hey, can you pick my kid up? It's like horrible, and then that kid feels pressure, and like it's awful because then that kid, like, that's the teacher's responsibility. Like, that would be something that I would want to do, you know, as a teacher, be aware of those kids that don't have the parents like not advocating for them, but don't have the like skills and the resources to like kind of have, you know, breakfast for them or something like that, or a ride home, and like finding those kids and then being able to help that out and help the parents is like really important.
Yeah,
I think it's just like how you set up your classroom too. Like, I know that in elementary school, like, you always have like the night before the first day of school, you can go in and like put your stuff in your classroom, like all the school supplies you were supposed to, and like meet the teacher and stuff. Like, at least that was in Arlington. We had that.
That'd be cool.
Never did that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like a back to school barbecue.
Oh, that's really cool.
Okay, we'll do that. And then like also my teachers in my elementary school, they would send us postcards in the summer, like, hey, I'm really excited to meet you, blah blah blah. I think that just like kind of like, oh, like this teacher cares, like she seems like really like kind and stuff. I don't know. I just think that would help too. Just like we welcome everybody in our class. Like, just like maybe mention that little blurb like in a postcard. Home before they get in the class, just like so it does kind of sound like more of a welcoming environment.
That's really cool. Yeah, I've never had that.
I'm sorry, I'm just like,
whoa.
whoa.
I was thinking about going into the classroom on the first day of school, and when the teacher would have everybody's birthdays up. That was cool when the teacher knew something about you that you didn't have to share because they didn't ask you. So that's a very much like parent involvement thing. Is like, if a parent's super involved with their kid's life, they're gonna like be like, hey, I really want to bring cupcakes on my kid's birthday and stuff like that, and like the communication level, and like I want to like make this amazing thing for my birthday, and like I feel like with the language barrier and with like the fear to come in, even into the classroom as an undocumented like student or parent, that couldn't happen, not because you didn't have the money to go buy cupcakes, but because you couldn't ask the teacher if you could come into the classroom, or you had the fear that they would be like, well, you're going to come to the classroom and be with the kids, well, can I see this or can I do that? So I feel like
just have a badge that says you're a visitor.
It's the only thing.
For the first article, what really, so at first it surprised me, and then once I actually thought about it, it made a lot of sense, that more recent immigrants were more optimistic about school than second generation.
And healthy physically.
And mentally.
Yeah.
At first I was like, no way. And then I was like, definitely.
Yeah.
When you think about all the stressors in their lives and on their parents' lives.
Oh, yeah.
And all, like, the racism they have to face, and that
extremely stressful.
That part of the first article just really stood out to me.
Yeah, the social mirroring part really was a huge thing, and I think that was the part that I was supposed to talk about, is like how the Latino youths thought that Americans viewed them, and like they were saying like most Americans think that we blank, and like, or most Americans think that Haitians are, you know, the context. And so the people, what these kids said, they were 9, 14, and like 12, like what they were saying was just insane. Like, most Americans think that we are lazy gangsters, drug addicts, and only come to take their jobs away. A 14-year-old Mexican boy.
It's awful.
Like,
And
if
that's
I
what
felt
they
like
hear
that
and read on
in a country,
Facebook.
like my everybody around me, I like see you in the face and think that that's what you're thinking in your brain when you look at my skin. Like that, I could never imagine feeling like that, and
I couldn't handle it.
Well, and it's just really hard because when we are like in middle school, like this is just like I like to incorporate psych into it sometimes. But like we think that it's like all eyes are on us when we're going through puberty. Like, oh, like I can't wear this. Like everyone's looking at me.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, I have a zit. Like it's the end of the world. Like I remember when I was in middle school, like I had a bad hair day. I didn't go to school. Like, but like this is like even more intense for them because they like some little thing that with my hair. But like this is like they literally are looked at as garbage. Like that's what they think that other people are looking at them as, and like how sad for kids that are 14 and like 15 or just like going through middle school, like all that kind of stuff. Like your body's changing for one, and then like that's just like such low self-esteem, and it's already like so high for Native Americans. Like they have the highest suicide rate because they're looked on like this, and it's just like we're not really helping these situations at all, and kids are just mean in general too.
Well, they're getting that from their parents and from the news and like you said, Facebook. Like people literally comment things like that. Like they are garbage and want to take our jobs, which I think Stephanie, it was yours that was talking about the person. No, it was yours. I keep getting them confused. The person who went to college and did all this stuff and then ended up working the same job as his mom who only had a 4th grade education. And so like we're not even allowing them to take our jobs. Right. That's like what we're freaking out about, and they can't
we gave them the lousiest jobs too.
Our jobs. Who even says that it's like
where's my name on the job?
Who's us? Anyway.
Like what does that mean?
Yeah, it's such a weird
And that was because he was undocumented, right? Yeah.
But it's just like the fact that he was able to even get college credit. So like
he has a degree and everything.
Exactly. Not like I don't think he got like his AA or anything like that, but he was able to get college credit to a point, and his mom got a 4th grade education, but they were working the same job. And he could speak 2 languages. He's bilingual. She's not. Like, but he has so many.
How frustrating that would be to work so hard, because that's why a lot of the reason people come, they have a mentality. They're really positive. They're like, this is America. We can do anything. Like this is where people achieve their dreams, and then we hit them with all these barriers over and over and over again.
It's just so hard on like your mental health. That's on your body, like. Because we already have, like, our own stresses in life, and then that's just intensified. Like, I don't know how I'd sleep at night. You know, like, it's cruel.
Has anybody ever looked at the tests people have to take in order to become an American citizen?
No.
I've heard about it.
I couldn't grab it.
Because, like, the amount of people that could pass it, like.
We had to take, like, kind of a mock one in, I think, 3rd grade. And I just remember, like, thinking, like, what the hell? Like, I wouldn't know any of these. And then I took it again junior year. I think I got like a 20% on it.
Like how are we supposed to? Like,
it's a lot of like stuff that we like government.
Who was the 4th president?
Yeah, like who was the 4th president?
I don't know.
Exactly.
I know,
my roommates
but we
get
get this by just being born here, and then they have to learn and remember all those things in a language that they
like,
are
why is that
learning.
So important?
But exactly. Apparently, that's important to become a citizen for this country.
Like I'm a citizen. I don't know. Maybe I should not be here. You know.
That's what I really liked about Abby's statement. It was like a really quick blip, but she was saying like right away, like when we have students who just came to the United States, we need to like jump on them and just like encourage their positivity and just be like, yes, like tell me like what are your interests, like what do you like, what do you want to learn, like just try to keep their schooling as positive as you can,
because we don't want that positivity to go away. And I think that's not just with people that move here, but even in kindergarten, kids are excited to go to school. Like there's not one kindergartner that's like, I don't want to be here. Like they're all excited, and so like teachers push that down, not just in kids that are struggling with like documentation things and like learning a language, but all kids. By the end of school, they're like, I'm so glad to be done with this. I don't want to go here anymore. And so I think we need to be really cautious of how we're teaching and putting people in those boxes.
Well, in our first, I think it was like our first day, maybe just our first week of class in 303 last quarter, I remember Dr. Jancic saying that in 3rd or 4th grade, that's when kids start to not want to be to school at all. And that's just really sad. It's like, why?
That's still little.
I mean, obviously it's not, they're
the
still really young. And what can we do to help that? And I think it makes me think more about our community asset mapping and how if we can look at the community asset mapping through the lens of like the social economic systems. So the micro and the macro and the meso systems, if there's something missing in that system, then what we should do is try to figure out where our community resources can fill those in. Like make sure that all the resources we have on our map cover all those different social economic systems.
All those bases.
And then these kids and their families would be able to hold on to that enthusiasm, or be able to express themselves culturally without being afraid. And like pretty much all these problems that we're talking about of ELL students, I feel like they have the ability to be mitigated by the community resources that are available here. Because if I'm able to benefit from these resources, if I can go to the food bank or go get tutoring or any other resource in the community, I feel like an ELL student and their family should be able to too.
Yeah.
It's just, how do we connect them and how do we get them that access? And I think that's going to be a big part of our community asset mapping, is not just putting all the resources that are in our community, but like how
Drawing
do we
connection.
Yeah,
and
connect
advertising
them.
it well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because even on campuses, like I don't know all the resources here, like 'cause sometimes it's not advertised very well.
Right.
But
yeah.
just like we just have to kind of like fit that needs, and like even if it's just so simple as having a bulletin board in your room, like your classroom, that says like, hey, like if you're having trouble in this area, or like stuff like that, and educate yourself in your community.
I also think with younger kids, I know in 2nd grade when a teacher would hand me a flyer, I'd put it in the bottom of my backpack,
Right.
and it'd be gone.
Find out at the end of the year.
Yeah. So I also think it is really important to directly communicate with parents. With every parent, saying this is what's available. If you need me, I can come with you.
Right.
If you need any more information, if not, like.
Right. And that's where it's hard. Like if you do have ELL students in your classroom, because we're bound to have them at some point, and you're bound to work with them. But it gets hard because even the kindergarten class I was in for my cohort, there was a little girl who spoke Vietnamese, and like her parents did too. So like they don't really understand English, so it'd be really hard to send an email to them. You'd have to get it translated. Like, so there's lots of little hoops you would jump through, but that's where like what you need to like be aware of that and be able to.
Yeah, that's where
you
gotta take the extra step.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's actually a lot easier than we make it seem like it is. Because I remember in my high school, it was really easy to get things translated because we had really good Spanish teachers or really like talented kids in the school that would look at something and translate it. And so I think it's easier than we make it out to be. And I think that's where I'm trying to look at all my stuff that I wrote, but I get everybody's stuff confused. So somebody said something about when you talk, I think it was Stephanie, talk about a student in a certain light, like, and you talk about how they have assets that communicates value to the other students as well.
Right.
So I think saying like, hey, can I have your help to help me translate this for your parents? Like, that gives them a lot of ownership in their own education and communicating about it to their parents too.
Right.
So we have, like, they have their own assets that we can utilize as teachers too.
It creates that little relationship with a kid, because I know I took 3 years of Spanish, like, and I just cannot pronounce it. But then you can like kind of joke around with me and like help pronounce this, and like then I could learn new vocab words, and then I could like incorporate that into my lesson. Like, oh, this is like the color for pink, or I don't remember the color for pink, but like stuff like that, or like, and then that makes that little boy feel or girl feel included. Like, oh, I taught my teacher that. Like, now she's teaching it to everybody.
I had a friend who spoke Spanish really well, but his English, he had a lot of like challenges writing essays and stuff, so I would help him write essays, and he would help me. Like, we would speak Spanish on the phone all the time, and he would like make fun of me if I messed stuff up, but help me. And so it was a really cool thing, because it was like there was just not shame and like, oh, I don't know how to say that, or like I wrote this wrong. It was just really open, and I think teachers could be like that too. Like, if you mess up on your English, it's fine, because I'm gonna mess up on your language.
I'm gonna mess up, but like, just like,
we're both trying.
I think that's
where
humility comes in. By letting the student know you're a human being. You have compassion. The kid has compassion. You can work together. And it's okay to make mistakes.
I think it's difficult though, because what you're saying is like, we're both going to be like messing up on certain things, and like, you're gonna mess up in Spanish, and like he might mess up in English, but the difference really though is what are you getting tested on? Like you're getting tested on Spanish, it's just like you have to like always be aware of the levels too, because like when we're learning Spanish, even if we take 3 years of Spanish, you're still only learning like 5th grade Spanish, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're not learning like real Spanish. So if you mess up, it's just like your Spanish grade is lower. But if you like can't get this one English thing down and you're taking the rest of your education in English, that's going to be like super
because you miss a step and you move on. It's just kind of like if you miss a step in math and you move on, you're you need to go back.
Because we're still working within a system. Even if we have the right hearts and the right intents, like we have to give the tests. We have to help them be ready for those standardized tests.
Yeah,
that's hard.
A big question for me, and potentially a many question. How are we gonna, like, I always struggle with how am I going to be like, fuck state testing, you know, like I don't like it, but then we have to do it.
Yeah. I wrote a question off of yours that said, how can we as general education teachers who have to follow Common Core support individuals and value more than just these core subjects? Because you were talking about we have to support the individual rather than just the student, but when there's so many necessities for us to do, it's really hard to look at them as more like having those community assets in our class and actually incorporating them into our classroom. Like, how is there time to do it and teach all the stuff we have to teach them
that they need to know? And then
it's all important.
There may be 5 kids that need like extra support on how to like know the Common Core, so you like want to teach them that, and you have to, but then you also want to encourage like their native language, and you want to encourage like learning and about their cultures, and time is gonna be a hard one.
It's kind of like that school in Tucson, or that program they had in Tucson. They were able to use Spanglish, they were getting to know the concept. Like, he was teaching them about a certain type of rhyme, and he was kind of like reciting like a hip hop song or something. Like, if it's something that they're interested in, then they'll be able to learn that Common Core stuff. But you're not only going to have Latino students to interest. You're going to have all these different ethnicities. And how, like you said, like, how are you going to pull all those in and cover the Common Core? How can you speak to every student and still have them pass these tests? I don't know.
It's hard. I was in a 5th grade classroom for Compass to Campus, and there was a few Spanish-speaking girls, and it looks like they're not up to standard with everybody, like the state standards. Like, they're actually like below their grade level, but it's not like that they're not smart or anything. It's just like they're in the lowest, because she had like A, B, C for categories for spelling tests. So like A's was like the challenging words, B was like at standards, and C were like the lower words, and they were all in like the C's. And it's just really hard, because before this class would have been like, I wouldn't even thought like that's why they were lower, sort of thing. But they really just like they're missing steps, and now they're in 5th grade going on to 6th grade and like middle school, and they're still so far behind. And like you could give them workbooks and stuff like that, like extra stuff, but like what kid wants to do extra work? Like,
it's also figuring out where to stop giving them like accommodations versus like modifications too is really difficult, because like I work in a 6th grade classroom for Compass Campus, and my kids do AR points where they like get certain points for reading. And I have this one kid in my class, Yoel, and he's so smart, but his Spanish is like crazy. His vocabulary, he's good at words, but it's very much so in Spanish. So his AR, he's in the middle, very much so, like at the B level or something. But if you gave him, and they're all English books that he has to read, but if you gave him Spanish books, that kid would be in the A's like ridiculous. But why can't we give him A's? Can't we give him B's? Because if we just gave him A's, then it wouldn't be, if we just gave him Spanish-speaking books, then it wouldn't be encouraging and like helping out his English. But if we just gave him English, then that's not going to help his Spanish either, which we want to help, because why would we want to suppress that? So it's really difficult to like figure out what you're grading on and your skill level. So
whenever I talk, I have some good friends that are teachers, and whenever I talk to them, they get really frustrated with just that, because they know comprehension. Like
I was thinking comprehension. They've got it.
If it was in their language.
Yes.
like this whole other language, they have to focus on the individual words, not the whole story. Yeah. So she wants to be like, yes, they understand comprehension. They can retell a story. They can make up their own full stories, beginning, middle, and end, but just not in English.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same as when you're learning to read, too. Like, if you read a story to, like, a 3-year-old, he can comprehend so much of what you read to him, but when they're learning to read and you ask them, like, oh, what'd you read? It's a lot harder because you're learning to read.
I was trying to sound out the word ceiling.
Yeah, you're focusing on different things. And one of the things I was thinking about was the articles talked about how some students will come in with credits, like they had credits in their credits, I guess it's not really like that in elementary school, but like classes that they had taken in their place of origin, and then they move here and none of that counts, so they have to be in lower grades than they were before. And so I was wondering too if they would transfer over even exactly, because I was wondering what those other countries value, because we were talking about how the U.S. values certain subjects over other subjects, and we teach certain things over other things. So I was wondering how different those things are too. Like in other countries, are they focusing a lot on this specific subject, and so they come to the U.S. and they're really awesome in that subject, but the subjects that we look at them as at a lower level because we're focusing on different subjects than what they were focusing on before.
Yeah,
so
and we focus on these subjects in order to feed our job market, the STEM fields, and industry and technology, and obviously that's going to be different in their country. So
I never thought about that. I knew, like my friends, I don't know if you experienced this, like when they would move to a different state, they would teach different standards, different ways of teaching, and like that would be frustrating.
Yeah.
But again, we all like pretty much push the same subject, so to be introduced to like a whole new significance of a subject.
Yeah.
I feel like taught that even more differently.
Yeah, I think it shows a lot in like when you see our countries ranked, like how Switzerland and like Finland are so much higher than us in their academics because their entire way of teaching is completely different from ours, and it is so successful. So that's also a question for me, is like, why don't we see what's working and then do that?
Okay, like in the movie with the superintendent where he was like, no, this is racist. I would just like look at the statistics, talk to the kids. That was like my argument. I was like, nothing fancy. Nothing fancy.
Yeah.
Like graduation rates way higher than like my schools.
And their grades.
And their passion. And so when he said that, I was just like,
they were just like so lively, like you could just tell. And like even in my school, I was just thinking about it, like when because I knew I grew up in a small town, but like we still had like Hispanics, or like I don't know the right term.
Latino and Hispanic, yep.
Yes. And they were really quiet in class, and like I would never, I just didn't even think about it, like why they were quiet in class. But like, so they brought up that point in the video, and just like being in these classes, they were just so live, like they cared about school, they wanted to come, and it's just like, oh, I hated that guy.
To get any high schooler to do that.
Yeah,
I know.
And they were
and
just
if it's
so
working,
excited. And that teacher is great. I want him.
And what other classes are you going to have kids literally fighting the government to keep in the class?
Right? Like, just give it to them,
That's my second time seeing them, and I still get, like it makes me cry when I watch it. It makes me so mad because it's like, they were doing something so good, and it was proven. Like, it would be one thing if, like, it would still be really frustrating if there weren't statistics to prove it, and they took it away, because they're not doing anything wrong. But that there were statistics, and it could still... like people could still make the argument just because they're in positions of power is so frustrating. So it's like, how are we ever going to break away from this?
Yeah.
If the statistics won't even prove.
And it's just it's one class for 50 minutes or whatever. It's not like all day long.
Yeah, and
you're not exclusive.
And there were white kids in the class. That made me mad too. On the video, they talked to a lot of white kids who were like, I had great experiences in this. I learned so much, and they're like, they're excluding kids based on race. And I was like,
but we're excluding you guys, like to just be exclusive to ours.
History is white people history.
Oh yeah.
Like for real, like the history that you learn in a history class, like book or whatever, is literally just like, and half of it's even like fake and not written in, and like
it's written by the winners.
Like
exactly, it's written by the winners. So it's just like.
The way that guy was wording that press conference, like if I was just a person like listening, I'd be like, oh my god, they're segregating the kids.
Yeah.
So I would be upset. So that made me
no problem.
And that guy just had like that little son behind him.
Like that, really, it makes it seem like they scheduled all the kids like that speak Spanish to be in one class, and that like it didn't talk about what they're learning really or anything. It was just like we're shoving them in a room.
And like, and that would like honestly, like as a community member, I'd be like, whoa, like I don't know.
That is wrong.
If you just like sat down with the students.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't. People don't.
Yeah,
it's and like who is he? Like like. I know this might be bad to say, but like he's American. Like who is he to even like say that this is a bad class for them when you're not in their position?
Yeah.
You know.
One thing I did think was interesting was when the one guy did go in and sit in the class, he was right that wasn't an accurate representation of what class normally was like, because they don't sit in a circle and discuss the class, like, and so I think that would have been a little bit confusing for him, but I get why they did it too, because they wanted him to feel, they really did a good job of trying to make him feel welcome and help him to understand how the class worked, but he didn't get to see the way that the class normally goes, and so I think he should have gone a second time, because it would be hard to just like come in and not explain anything that's happening, because if I walk into a class and I haven't been there all year, I'd be like, I'm sorry, what? Like, what's going on right now?
There'd be a lot of pressure for 17-year-olds to be like, okay, like, your education rides on, like, how well this class goes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how well our discussions
For 50
go.
minutes.
Like, make sure you don't say anything wrong, or they're gonna, like, that would be so difficult.
Like, filming it even, like, forgetting that you know what I mean? Like, half the time, sometimes we're like, oh, wait, we're getting recorded, okay. Like, just filming it and then presenting it as their case would be like, look at what they're learning. It's not. Nobody is saying like screw white people on this. So I feel like filming it would have been a really good way, and it wouldn't have put that pressure on that person, and wouldn't have put the pressure on the students too.
Mm-hmm. But even then, I don't know that those people would have. They're looking at it through such a clouded lens that I don't know that even like it. I would like to think that if they really saw it, they could have. But that guy was so harsh on just not wanting it. I don't think he was able to see anything else.
No, absolutely not. And I feel like it was really what he looked like. Maybe it wasn't even his belief too. It was just like, I want to look this way to the people that elected me, and I want to stay true to those things. And like, I don't know what his like running was based off of, but like, it could have been a lot of that. Like the people that elected him were the people that were burning flags and protesting and stuff like that. So that could have been a lot of it.
I thought it was interesting too. Like the lady, I don't remember what her name was, but someone higher up than him had like stopped the bill from going anymore, and then she was hired by Obama's administration, so she wasn't able to. I don't know if it was like one tiny paragraph on screen. So because she went to a higher, like she was awesome, and so of course she got hired to a higher position.
But then she couldn't.
She's not able to work there anymore and like work in that and stop those things from happening. And I was like, that is really frustrating because like that you continuously move up and then you're not able to always help in the smaller senses.
So with Obama, she could work. I'm sorry.
She just got a different job. Like she got a different job working with the Obama administration, but she was working in like state of Arizona first, and so she had stopped the bill to end the class, and then like I think she could have been instrumental in stopping it more times, but she left and they hired somebody else who was like more
because like federal and then state level government.
So there's a lot of political things going on that are stopping this class, and then also just bureaucratic things like a new person coming in. How could we use that example of that program to help our students, our future students? I think one of the main things I noticed that the teacher was doing was he didn't care about their grammar. And he was mixing in some Spanish words, and he said novio for boyfriend, and I think that really got the students interested. They're like, oh wow, it's okay to use our language in this class. And again, not all of our ELL students are going to be Spanish L1s. But I feel like just that general approach, we can use it. Like, yes, it's really sad that program got shut down, but we can still learn from it. It was a great program, and it sets a really good example for just a general approach we can use in our class.
If we're having discussions I guess it's hard to compare high schoolers' educations to elementary schoolers' educations, but I'm gonna try. I feel like there's times when you're gonna teach them like the sounds and phonetics and how to spell, but then there should be times where you can just have a discussion as much as 7-year-olds can like definitely have discussions.
Yeah.
Where you have discussions where there's like it's more casual, more conversational, more or less relaxed.
Because if they can't just speak, then like if they feel like they have to use correct grammar, then they're not going to talk.
Right.
So that inhibits them from participating.
Yeah.
We should do the whole code switching discussion we had when we first started and tell them it's okay. We're switching right now. We're not talking about spelling and grammar right now. We're just talking about this story, and like say you're doing a unit on myths. I want to hear what your ideas are on mythology. How is it different from a fable? Don't worry about your grammar right now. Use, whatever language you want. I just want to hear your ideas, and because they'll be more comfortable with it.
And if you are teaching effectively, those spelling and grammar things will come naturally.
Yeah,
so they won't have to be like, okay, here's what I'm gonna say, and let me use the correct grammar.
It's like really easy for us to like make up this like hypothetical story. Like I could picture I pictured you in a classroom like saying that to a bunch of kids, but it's also you can't. How do we eliminate all the other kids like they said that stuff like that, because that does happen. Kids are jerks, we
have to create that environment from the beginning.
That's where creating a safe culture or classroom culture comes in importance, and zero tolerance if a kid's being a jerk.
It's supposed to be zero tolerance, but a lot of that is left.
Put your name in the bully box.
Repetition is really important too. I feel like in making the lines clear between where grammar is important and isn't is like the most important. So the kid's not unclear about it, because when it's unclear, like, oh, is this a situation where I can say whatever I want? If they're not clear on it, they're not going to do it. So when you're like, can I go to the bathroom? I don't know. Can you?
I hate that.
That is not the time to teach somebody grammar.
Like, I need to go to the bathroom. Please let me go.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah, we all know it though. So was it effective because we know to say may? But we all, you know what I mean? Like it's so difficult. You have to be very as a teacher, you have to be very clear and
pick your
battles. Just like
consistent.
Yeah, consistent. Be really consistent and clear with when grammar is and isn't important. I feel like that's super.
I think that's a point where the cues come in, and you can have maybe even posters on the wall and just say like these certain, I don't know what they would be, but verbal cues or written cues where they can look at and be like, okay, so during this language unit, and then you have these cues on the board to remind them, like, this is how we're going to be speaking and writing right now. And then when you switch gears and you're talking about, like, literature or something, like, okay, boys and girls, now we're in literature, and look at these cues. It's okay to do this. It's okay to do that. And just every single time, like you're saying, be consistent and repeat yourself. And every time you switch gears, let them know we're switching gears. And to make it more streamlined, just have the cues.
I like that a lot. I think kids would really...
enjoy that.
Benefit.
Yeah,
they would really like it.
I wanted to mention one thing that we were talking about was in the classroom, in Tucson High School. I feel
Sorry.
Tucson. That's how I read it too.
Please.
I think that it's different for us too because we're in a college classroom and all of our classrooms are discussions like that, and that class is so different from every other high school class that they've ever taken. And like me in high school, I never took any classes like that, so it was a very different class, and that's why it was so big. But I feel like that's also why it was so looked at so negatively, because it was giving kids that are minors the freedom that we have as adults to discuss and stuff like that. And it was weird because there was like a more of a rebellious feel rather than like a social justice feel. I feel like it wasn't like the feeling of the kids, but it was like that's the way it was portrayed, perceived. It was more of like a rebellious because of their age. I feel like that's a really important, because when you're giving them the chance to do that, it's like, oh, a 16-year-old's doing it, that's rebellious. But if a 20-year-old's doing it, if it's more of like they're mature, even if they had the same exact struggles, or even if a 20-year-old has had less struggles than the 16-year-old, it's ageist. I feel like it's a very
I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, that's true.
That is.
And these younger kids and young adults have so many awesome ideas.
Yeah.
So we should allow them to just have these discussions.
And that was never given, like, even in my classroom or in high school, like, I was never given that opportunity to discuss like that. Only once I hit college, and then even after freshman year, I didn't really get the confidence to, like, discuss things until after sophomore year, because you're told, don't talk, don't talk, don't talk, don't talk. You have to go ask to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Okay, if you're good, do your taxes, talk to everybody, talk to 100 people, 200 people, like.
Okay.
It's kind of overwhelming, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So giving them the opportunity to discuss, and then also giving them the freedom to feel comfortable discussing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Opportunity.
Okay, I think we talked about.
That's awesome.
Okay. 50.
Goodbye.
5 minutes.
I think we have many questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.